director, producer, and writer of the show.
My name is Daria Clark, and I'm also the director, writer, and producer of the show, and I'm a junior.
My name is Claire Flynn. I'm a senior, and I play Samantha in The Supporters.
I'm Jeffrey Stein. I'm a sophomore, and I play the counselor in The Supporters.
I'm Amanda Silver. I'm a sophomore, and I played Lydia and Lily.
Hi, my name is Xander Taylor, and I played Benjamin in That Night.
Hi, my name is Clay Nabiler. I'm a senior, and I played Tamara and Casey's mother.
Hi, my name is Ginny Goodman, and I'm the representative from Family Service Agency.
I'm Connor McDonald, and I played Michael, Jacob, and then the principal.
All right, so we're going to start with our first question. I'm going to give this to Kalea and Connor. What do you think is the most important message of a day in the life?
I feel that a really important message in the day in the life is that there are all these different scenarios that nobody can predict. And it's important that everybody understands that people are going through their own things, and we all just have to be there and be supportive no matter what's going to happen. It's all these different vignettes really show the different types of problems that people can have and the variety that there is out there, so it's best to just be supportive.
For me, I think at this point in time, a conversation has been started, and I think it's really, really important that we keep that conversation going and that the adults in our lives take it seriously. I think a lot of the times the problems that teenagers go through are kind of swept under the rug, and I don't think that that's something that's fair, and I think that this production really brings to life how traumatic and how serious these issues are to us, and no problem can really be measured by anyone else. If it hurts you, it hurts you, and that's just how it goes, and I think that that's something that really has to be listened to.
Thank you. What made you decide to be a part of the show? So I'm going to give that to Claire and Amanda.
So, adding on to what Kalea said, when Ari and Daria came to me with the show and how they wanted to do a vignette or to do a series of vignettes regarding mental health, I really wanted to be a part of it, just like Kalea said, to start a conversation. And I think these vignettes do show a great amount of what teenagers struggle with or know friends that go through that situation. And it's really important that we talk about it to remove the stigma on mental health so that people aren't afraid to reach out for help. So that was my main motivation for wanting to be a part of this.
I actually joined because I suffer from depression and anxiety, and something that's really helped me through that has been performing and just expressing myself through performance. So I felt like this was the perfect opportunity for me to not only perform and express myself, but also showcase some of the issues that I go through and that my friends go through to help bring some light onto the situation.
Okay, this next question is for Jeffrey and Xander. What is something you think adults misunderstand about teens in the 21st century?
Xander, you want to take this one first?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, appreciate it. I think that, it's very easy to say that, the older generation doesn't understand us, but I think, when you go across any generation, I think that the older generation always has a hard time understanding the younger, right? Because there's a lot of diverse issues that arise with each generation that, the ones that preceded them didn't really get a chance to understand or, go through. So I think now we're in a time where I think the old generation are they're trying really hard to understand what we're going through and, doing their research and trying to help us. But I think if there's one thing that, they could work on a little bit more is just that sometimes it's just best to, just to be listened to, just take the time just to listen to your kid or, whoever the young person is.
I agree, and I think that to a certain extent the sort of issues that plague us teenagers are indescribable, but one aspect of life and difficulties for us that are difficult to understand is the fact that in this 21st century we live in such a globally interconnected world thanks to the internet and social media and phones and just for example, if I want to, I could go have a phone call with someone from China just whenever I want to, and that the fact that everything is so quick on a social level nowadays is something that I think older generations do occasionally have problems understanding. And like Xander said, most do make the effort, which I appreciate tremendously.
And now this next question, I'd like Amanda and sorry, I haven't met you yet. What's your name?
Jenny.
Jenny? Okay, so the question is, what is something that teachers and administrators can do better when addressing mental health issues on campus?
All right, so personally for me, I think communication and speed of communication is key. I feel like with a lot of situations, sometimes students feel left in the dark. When things happen, we'll get told we're working on it, and then if we don't see a change, we'll just assume nothing was done to help us. And even if that's not the case, it's really hard for students to understand that you're trying to help us when you don't tell us what you're trying to do, or at least what you're working on. If you're trying to work on, for instance, a group to help kids who are in divorced families, for example, if you say we're working on something, that could mean literally anything. That could mean we're installing a new water fountain. That could mean we're going to donate thousands of dollars. It's anywhere in that spectrum. So I feel like just communicating with us in a good amount of time, especially when something happens, like immediately just saying, hey, we're so sorry, this is what we're working on, we want to help you, is key to having kids really understand we are being helped and we are being respected.
I would say that it's really important for administrators and educators to understand that mental health affects your academic progress and your daily lives. And if you're extremely stressed or under a lot of pressure or dealing with a lot of things that were represented here, that it's very hard to focus on that. And that having avenues in which you can get help with the care centers that we have on campus and with counseling that we have on campus, that they need to understand that it's just as important because you're a holistic person, and that we have to work together and making it, providing services that will help you to succeed in all areas of your life.
Okay, this is for anyone who wants to share. If you have a story about mental health that you feel comfortable sharing, will you please tell us about it, and what kind of support has helped you throughout your journey?
When I was in 5th grade, I got bullied a lot, not only by students, but by other administrators. And that really hurt me, and it completely shattered my spirit over summer. I lost every single friend that I thought I had. I felt like they had all turned their backs on me. So going into 6th grade, I had no one to talk to, and I started having these thoughts about myself, like maybe I'm not worth it, if I was worth it, people would stick around and people would care for me. That's what friends are supposed to do. And I had convinced myself that I wasn't worth it and I wasn't worth caring about. And I began to look at things differently, and I stopped eating. I would only sleep it would be a school day, and then I'd do my homework and then immediately go to bed because I just couldn't take the pain of being awake. And it was so painful that I just decided that I wanted to die. And I started self-harming, and it wasn't a good situation. And I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone. I didn't want to be pulled out of class to try to be talked to by someone who didn't understand what I was going through. And I was just so scared to even say anything. So I just kept it all bottled up inside of me. And I just really honestly wanted to give up. And I tried out for choir, and I got into the advanced girls choir. And that just completely changed my mind. I don't know what it was, but for the first time, I had felt like someone had cared to give me a chance and believe in me enough to just say, I believe in you, you can do this. And it really changed me. And once I got into choir, I just loved performing, and I just fell in love with it, and that really did help.
I think my freshman year, I had a teacher that told us as freshmen, if there's any advice I can give you, it is to join something. It doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter if you are in love with it at first, but join something. And I think as a freshman, I tried to take that advice. I joined a lot of different things, and that has saved me throughout high school. I think if you ask any of the students on this stage, the reason why we're capable of dealing with the stress of school and homework and whatever is because we have these programs like theater or JSA or teen court or any number of the things that we offer on campus that really give us a good support group and something to fall back on. So if you're a teacher or a student that, or a parent of a student that's struggling, definitely try to get them involved in something. I think that's extremely helpful. All right. Sorry, go ahead. Dylan.
So I have a story that I have never actually told my family yet, and I am now finally going to tell them. Mom, this may be shocking. But it was my kind of first dive into social media and sort of things like that, and it was 2 years ago, and I met this girl online who I'll keep her name anonymous this time, and she and I just talked online, discussed things, much like in Number of You Have Reached, in that scene. It was at first nonchalant, and then I don't know what happened, and she opened up to me, and it was kind of amazing because I thought, she trusts me, she thinks I can help her. And then it slowly spiraled from being, I was a positive support line, to the relationship effectively became parasitic. And it emotionally drained me a lot to talk to her, but I felt like I could not sever the line. And she was probably a couple hundred miles away from me, and I'd never actually met her. Yet, there I was, and I felt like just that she thrust a huge responsibility on me, because she kept saying that you can fix me, you can fix me. She kept saying things like that, and it horrified me. And I eventually spoke with my grandmother, who's seated right over there, and God bless you so much for helping me through this. And my grandmother eventually helped me through this and just said, you need to stop this, you need to end it. And it was only with the help of my grandmother that I was able to finally just stop talking to her. And even to this day, she occasionally will message me and say, why have you stopped loving me? Why do you hate me now? And I have to tell her, I don't hate you. I can't do this any longer. And it's rough.
Okay. If there's any questions from the audience right now, before we... Oh, you want... Oh, sorry. Claire, go ahead.
I wasn't really planning on sharing a personal thing, but hearing you guys has encouraged me to share. I have anxiety. Some of my friends know, some don't. It started in about 6th grade. I think middle school is a rough time for everyone. And I didn't really understand what it was. I just, much like the scenes, panic attacks occur for no reason sometimes. And it creates a spiral. Here, the way I explain it to my friends and family is like climbing up a flight of stairs. So, do you guys know the feeling of climbing a flight of stairs when you miss a step and you get that feeling in your stomach like you're gonna fall? And it's something that's so minor. You know, obviously falling or tripping down a step isn't major, but that feeling you get in your stomach, that's what a panic attack feels like, except to take that feeling and you keep it there for about 20 minutes. That's how I describe having a panic attack, and it sucks. It sucks because you can't explain why you feel like that, and your brain starts wondering, well, what's wrong? What's going on? You start searching for reasons or problems, and you looking for things that are wrong creates more of that feeling, and it just creates a spiral, and that's how people can have panic attacks and start to hyperventilate and panic. And my family has offered me unconditional love and support. I had the resources I needed at the time to be able to get better. And really, although anxiety is always going to be there for a lot of us, I mean, 1 in 4, Daria and I did a film about anxiety disorders last year, and we discovered that 1 in 4 teenagers between the ages of 13 and 18 have some type of an anxiety disorder. 1 in 4. That was crazy. And it can be minor, it can be major, but the fact that we're talking about it and we can understand it and remove the stigma really just, it encourages me that although I may have anxiety and although it won't go away, that I've beaten the fear of having it and the stigma surrounding it. And I love being able to say that. And it's because of shows like this and people like you and audience members who are here and listening and participating. And I'm so grateful. And I can't wait to see what we're going to do as a community.
All right, are there any audience questions? Right there?
Quickly, because I know everyone's had a long day and this is intense, but first I just have to commend this group. What you staged, how you executed it, the way it was acted, it was so authentic, it was so touching and so moving and so needed in this community. Every single vignette was so specific and detailed and well written. So my question is, can you talk a little bit as the writers, what was that process? Did you interview? Did you read things and you took stories and scenarios from that? Did you just make it up? I mean, especially that last with the OxyContin and the mother and all, I mean, we lead a pretty privileged life here in Burbank, you know, for the most part. And I know for me as a parent dealing with some of this stuff, my thought was, you know, we have this great life, and some of us of the older generation are like, you don't know what it was like for us, so how can you kids feel this way? I mean, I know I'm speaking for myself. So I've had my own journey with some of this stuff, but how did you write about that? Like, how did you come up with your ideas?
So, well, my dad is a child psychologist. My mother's a licensed counselor. So I have, some basic understanding of mental health. I took AP Psych this year for this project, but a lot of it did come from Daria and I had the privilege of talking to some kids from like the LGBTQ community about what they struggle with, and then some of our male friends in Play Pro talked to us. Actually, Connor was one of them. Talked to us about what kind of pressures they face as young boys and as young men, and especially like interacting in romantic situations. So that was really helpful. A lot of it came from my own, I did my own research as well. Some of it was drawn from real life experiences. As far as the last scene, I had the privilege of working on that with Samantha Salcedo and Zachary Hagen-Smith, who are I think in this audience tonight. Yes, thank you. Yes, great job. As far as their process, I'm not sure. I didn't work on. We kind of worked on a Google Doc, but did not communicate together. But I think in each of these stories, even though they are something very different than what I've experienced as a teenager living in Burbank and living a relatively privileged life, there are certain feelings that you get just from your daily interactions that are kind of good to clue you into how these characters might feel. We've all had the experience of disappointing our mother or father in a big way, I think. And so I think I was able to find my little bits of humanity, like the general experiences, the universal experiences that everyone I think goes through, and try to add it into the characters as I was going along writing.
Yeah, I say the same. At least for the ones I wrote, I pulled a lot from personal experiences, and I definitely did some research. And I think just talking to other people that have gone through these similar scenarios really helps to formulate a scene that would, I think, resonate with a lot of people.
We can take one more question. I'm sorry. Right there. You're really excited.
Thank you. First of all, I learned a ton tonight. And you talk about generational things. I'm Jeffrey's dad, so I learned something tonight too, and I think that is going to be a fascinating drive home. And I didn't. I thought, my son's not one of these ones that has some hidden thing going on. You literally illustrated the point of your evening by having him get inspired enough to share something that I was completely unaware of. And so I know that was all about me, so I'll ask a question, which is, generationally, you mentioned the disconnect, which happens, I love it, I've gotten older, I was like, wow, there is a disconnect. The question I think what some of my generation asks ourselves is, we've heard a lot of these, had similar experiences. You've got anxiety, you've got fears of suicide, we've had these sorts of things, sexuality, etc. But the X factor that fascinates my generation is social media. So if you guys can, any of you, speak to the question of what you think that's doing or not doing and how we can help you or not help you with that issue, because that's bigger than anything we had to tackle.
I think for me, my family has struggled a lot to understand this kind of attachment to social media. And me personally, I'm not super attached, but I definitely feel a little weird when I don't have my phone. I think that that's something that, you know, it was kind of just forced on us. We didn't have the choice of being thrown into this technological world, and it's really tough to grow up knowing that everything you're doing can be seen, everything you're doing can be judged. But I think it also instills some bravery. I feel like I can go out into the world, and now because my whole life has been just posted about, there's not much for me to hide, so I can learn to embrace what I am and who I am. It hasn't been easy because of social media, but I think that it's kind of taken me in a different path that maybe my parents would have gone through acceptance. I definitely feel stronger though because of it, and I feel really connected to the world around me, which I think is just a really beautiful thing.
Xander?
Social media is interesting, isn't it, right? It's so expansive, you know, there's literally millions of people logged in all the time, you know, describing their lives from different walks of life, from different places, you know. And for me, I've had trouble with depression, and a lot of the times I would be inside and I just wouldn't want to go outside or talk to anyone. And, you know, you would go on social media and, you know, it's so big and it's so overwhelming almost, because you see all these people doing things that you're not, and you see all these people who don't people who, you know, don't look like you do and are doing better things than you do. And I think that can be overwhelming. Almost, you got to set a standard for yourself, right? And sometimes those standards get too high and it becomes overwhelming. I think, you know, social media is an amazing tool that we have been gifted with, right? It allows us to do so much. But I think that sometimes I would forget that, you know, there's that world, but then there's the one in front of me that I get to interact with, right? And the one that I can control and the one that I get to succeed in. And I think that's the big problem, I think, is that a lot of people forget that you can leave it behind. It's not something that needs to be attached to you. It's not something that you need to be a part of. You can, you know, silence it, you can leave it. Yeah, social media is interesting.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
Scary.
Yeah. I think one thing to keep in mind is that, at least in my perspective, social media is something where, like, it's in your life, it's in everybody's life. It's very, very rare that someone does not have a social media platform. And it's very hard to, it is possible. It is possible. It takes a lot of bravery and it takes a lot of courage to silence it and put it away. And it's not that easy for a lot of people. It is something that I feel a lot of people think that they need it to fit in. You have to have social media if you want friends to be in the loop, to be a part of everything, to be a part of conversations, because texting is only so much. Things happen over direct message, and it's very difficult for a lot of people to just turn it off and put it away. That's one thing to keep in mind, that it's not something you can just disconnect from right away. For a lot of people, it's their only connection through their friends. I think that's one thing to keep in mind.
Do you mind if I? Thank you. I think something that's interesting about social media is it's made me like hyper sharing my emotions a lot of the time. So like, so some students have a spam account, or and that would be an account that's like more private than the normal Instagram account. I don't know if like people know what this is or not, but so usually you would like keep it on private and only accept the people that you're closest to friends wise. And so I myself am an owner of a spam account, and sometimes I think I share too much. Nothing like, Mom, don't worry, nothing like that. But like, sometimes well, the thing about social media and being online and being able to email is you don't allow yourself sometimes to have reactions to your situations and to what's happened. So, and then instead go right online to divulge what you're feeling right in that moment. And I think it's important, that's something that's really hard as a teenager, to not force yourself to take a step back and say, like, okay, how will me posting this affect other people? What if this continued into my adult life? What if someone saw this and like it cost me my job or something? So I think because it's just such an instant gratification thing, it does feel better when you like put your emotions out there and you see all these comments from your friends like, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. But it also, we do need to learn some self-control when it comes to oversharing, I would say. Okay, Claire, then Amanda, and then wrap up.
So just kind of to add onto that, social media definitely has its pros and cons. Pros, like Kalea said, I'm sorry, I know you're, I've known you forever, I know you're new. I think feeling connected is a huge pro. And then like Xander said, fear of missing out, seeing other people, what they're doing is also a con. I've had social media for a very long time. I had Instagram and Snapchat. All of my friends had it. And it was something that I spent a lot of time on. And 4 weeks ago, I made the decision to delete all of my social media, to mainly kind of like as an experiment, because I heard a lot of things about how it affected your health. My boyfriend Jack doesn't have any social media ever, never once in his entire life. So I was like, that's really interesting. Let me try this out. And the first week was really hard. I felt very isolated. I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I was just like, I gotta do something. Second week was easier. I would still find myself like scrolling. He caught me a lot of times scrolling back and forth looking for the app, and it wasn't there. And 4 weeks now, I feel great. Honestly, I never knew how much it was impacting my mental health, but something it was seriously impacting was my self-image, and my body image, and just my self-confidence, and it's improved so much. So I think to answer your question, it is a huge impactor in how we feel in our mental health, and it's different for everyone. But I feel like that's also where a disconnect could be between our generations and why mental health is such a larger problem. I'm not sure exactly why that is research-wise, statistically, but through doing my own, kind of experiment kind of a thing, it's definitely a huge factor.
For me, I think social media can be such a great tool. For me, I'm very passionate about makeup and makeup-related stuff. So sometimes, when I do something here, it's like, okay, 5 classmates see it. I'm not at school for that long, and then I go home. But it's like when I post it, maybe on my art social media, 40 people see it, and half of them comment, wow, I think this is so cool, or maybe work on that thing, and it helps me personally. But I think navigating it can also be really tricky, and learning how to use social media efficiently is, I don't know how to put it exactly, but learning how to use it but not overuse it. I feel like a lot of people put a lot of their self-worth in what they post, and what other people post. Like sometimes I'll go on my Snapchat and I'll see my friends hanging out without me, and I'm like, oh man, that makes me feel so bad about myself. I quit social media for a week last week as an experiment of my own, similar to Claire's experiment. And it felt kind of freeing to not have the stigma of, oh, my friends might be hanging out without me. I didn't care. So I think it's just all about, there were some aspects I did miss, like, posting my own makeup looks and sort of, taking videos of people that are goofing off. I thought that was fun, but navigating it is something that's very hard, and I think learning how to navigate it correctly and positively is a really important tool that I think more people need to be aware of.
If you felt like you had any other questions that we didn't get an answer tonight, my email's on the front of, what's it called? The program. So you can feel free to email me. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight, and I hope you have a great night.